we are talking about the future. Please make purchasing decisions based on products we sell today. Hello. We're going to be talking about standardizing service ownership at scale today. I'm Davis Godbout, product manager here over at PagerDuty, and I'm joined by my wonderful colleague, Karen Myers.
Hi, Davis. Thanks so much for having me today.
Great to have you here. You'll leave today knowing how to leverage PagerDuty to help you scale service ownership in your organization. First, let's define what service ownership is. Service ownership is a DevOps best practice where people take responsibility for supporting the software they deliver at every stage of the lifecycle. At its core, it means that the subject matter expert is the person responsible for responding to any issues with the code in production, rather than completely separate operations team. That level of ownership brings development teams much closer to their customers, the business, and the value being delivered. Service owners are on call for the code they write. PagerDuty originally evolved in a different era of DevOps. Things were much simpler. The teams were often sitting in a room. A service architecture was relatively simple. When something went wrong, you just tap someone on the shoulder. You probably built most of the software infrastructure. Things were a lot easier. And then all of a sudden, things got really hard. Teams scaled. Service architecture scaled. And then everybody went remote. So that meant, the knowledge and understanding of what it meant to scale DevOps practices was also challenging. Getting services into our system was a challenge. And PagerDuty has wanted to step up to that challenge. And I'm going to hand over here to Karen to talk about what kind of impact it's had on our customers.
Perfect. Thanks, Davis. So I'm going to take Salesforce as a specific customer in mind who's been leveraging PagerDuty for a number of years now. So organically, they've been adding numbers of teams and services steadily over time. However, recently, they decided that they wanted to focus more on building and operating better digital platforms for their end users, for their customers. So that meant two things. One, they needed to focus on a journey to full service ownership. And two, they needed to expedite that process of scaling out the creation of services and teams in PagerDuty. So working closely together with our program champion and head of product management, Francis, we were able to help scale and sync over 1,000 services in PagerDuty last year.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. Not only did we handle that level of scale, 1,000 services, we did it in 8 hours. That's a major transformation in one organization.
It's huge, and it's really amazing that we were able to do that, but that's just the beginning. So now that we have all of those additional services and teams in PagerDuty, we're going to help them through what we call our operational maturity model. So we've identified 5 phases of maturity. Each phase, of course, indicates the level of maturity based on how well a team or organization is poised to handle any kind of customer impacting issue. The most manual and nascent kind of team organization really has no process, no automation, no way to handle larger scale issues. And over time, though, we help guide them to incorporate better incident response practices. So ultimately, they get to a preventative state in handling their operations, where they really focus on what happened and how can we improve our technology and how can we improve our process. And there's 2 really benefits of really driving operational maturity at an organization. I'll give you 2 reasons why. The first one is really about your operational metrics. Your operational metrics will absolutely kick butt. So we've seen that more mature organizations outperform their peers in 4 different categories in their ability to acknowledge incidents, to mobilize the right teams to help mitigate those issues, to resolve incidents, and they ultimately have 14 hours of fewer downtime in a month period, which is phenomenal. The second reason why it's better to have a more mature operational practice is about your people. Your people won't quit your company. No matter how good your company perks are, teams are likely to leave your organization if you're reactive. Having a more mature process focused on preventing issues means that there's improved staff productivity, reduction in unplanned work. Your people really feel empowered to do their best work. So that's ultimately another reason why people really should drive operational maturity in their organizations. And my team is happy to do that.
And Karen, I love to call out, I'll just do a quick sidebar. I love to call out that actually This is really tackling from an output standpoint, people, process, and tooling. We truly
Exactly.
transform organizations through service ownership. Great work. It's awesome to point to these metrics.
Absolutely. Thank you for calling that out, Davis. So where we are right now with Salesforce and how and what they're focusing on to become more operationally mature is around the health of the teams and the services. So now that everyone's in PagerDuty, all the services are in PagerDuty, it's really making sure that all of them are set up around according to best practices and what really good setup looks like, so that their health is protected and the services are reliable. Really.
I love the two-part aspect to this. Is not only did we allow them to scale, get the services into PagerDuty, but we also improve their processes along that journey. So it's not just we accommodate scale, but we actually improve towards a full service ownership DevOps model alongside that journey.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's a great segue into what my team is focused on building out here in PagerDuty. Karen, you've worked with a lot of our enterprise customers. What kind of best practice do you share with customers around their services setup in PagerDuty?
Sure, absolutely. So a lot of different customers are in different phases of their maturity in PagerDuty in terms of setup, et cetera. But really, it all starts off with setting up base standards to help everyone level the playing field, if you will. So really starting off with basic foundations of what a good service setup looks like, and then going from there. In general, they need to be able to have the right teams engaged when an incident triggers and have the right visibility to understand the impact of those incidents across the business.
And, and Karen, what does a good service setup look like?
Sure. I really look at this in three different categories, Davis. It's really about first naming. If a responder gets paged at 3 a.m. because something broke, will they be able to know what service had an issue and why they're being woken up? If not, then you probably better name that service a little bit better or have a little, more of a description there, right? The second element is the people aspect. So, have you have identified the right teams or SMEs to engage with when your service breaks? Yes. Great. Then set up their on call rotations and escalation policies with multiple levels, et cetera. The third part of this is the tooling element. So, are you sending events via our API so you can take advantage of basic alert grouping? Have you set up, collaboration channels like Slack or MS Teams to extend the communication out to different team members in the business for visibility? So, it's those three components: the naming, the people, and the tooling that are the basics of what a good service looks like, a good service setup looks like.
And to call this out more explicitly, we've been talking here about our upcoming release service standards, which allows you to truly, bring your teams and your services, with direction in the PagerDuty process. So Karen did a great job of summing up all the different areas to really, I don't want to say clean up, but evolve your team's processes. We enabled the teams before, but we want to make it explicit and really easy to understand on a team ownership level, and also understand how to evolve your whole organization at scale. Once you've set up standards, you can launch and see in action what the business impacts and implications of incidents are on your services. This is the outcome. At PagerDuty, we want to empower the teams directly with the DevOps model of start with observability to your systems, and this is a direct example of that with the service graph. PagerDuty provides context and dependencies to understand both the blast radius in your technical architecture, while also understanding the customer impacts downstream via business services. Karen, I'd love to hear how you've seen customers leverage the service graph while it's been live.
Sure. So, since this has been live, I've really been able to dive deeper into understanding how to improve my customer service architecture. And the great part of it is that when they see it, they actually get it right away. The service graph is the feature that brings the conversation to light for both incident response triage purposes, alongside recognizing how to improve the actual configuration of the service. The best customers also set up service dependencies right away to get a sense of the business impact across the org. So, in both of these scenarios, we are following the similar DevOps mantra of starting with visibility and observability into your system to drive continuous improvement. And really, both service standards and service graph have empowered me to change the conversation with my customers to really drive continuous improvement with every interaction.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Karen, for showing. This has been a real blast working with you here. And with that being said, we're going to launch off into a demo here and see it in action. All right. So we're going to start with looking at the service graph. And to start with a little bit of orientation here, we're going to start by understanding that the top level nodes are actually our business services. These are the downstream services that will impact customers. And downstream are the supporting technical architectures. The highlights are essentially dependencies that potentially fulfill the entire business service application. To start with a specific use case, we're going to start with the incident response use case with the service graph. So you can click in, quickly see that there's an associated incident. There's there's a P1 issue on the retail website, and we can open up one of the incidents. So there's actually recognizing, you can see the full context of the incident. You can also, when you're viewing this page you might have come from an alert and see what's on this page. You can also view the service graph to understand the broader scope of impact to this business service. So what we're going to do to understand potential associated objects, this is the dependencies. All right, so let's switch gears into a different use case. We just ran through the incident response use case alongside the service graph. Let's talk about a different scenario, and this is being proactive and improving your team's processes towards service ownership. So, because we were just talking about the last scenario, which is understanding the potential impacts to our customers, we recognize there's some downstream services that support these business services that impact customers. Let's dig in and understand exactly what's going on to understand the current state of their service ownership profile. All right, so digging here, we can see that this team is actually in a pretty good place. They're hitting all of our service standards and are ready to be in a proactive situation. But as you may know, this isn't always the case. There's potential areas where teams aren't leveraging PagerDuty the best scenarios that they can. So let's take a look, go into the service directory, and take a holistic view. So we see some of these teams that are in a solid state, 8 of 9, that's generally a good place. And then we start to see that teams, aren't leveraging PagerDuty to the best capacity. So this isn't necessarily a means to punish a team, but it's recognizing that these teams can be in a better position to handle things moving forward. So even things like, having 2 or more unique levels, having backups, having a description of what this service actually supports. The great thing is you can actually, from the screen, actually launch and make these improvements. Well, just want to thank you for coming and sitting along today and talking about the story of service ownership. A couple of action items. So the service graph is available today. You can hit that QR code and access our knowledge base, understand how to get set up and understand truly how to leverage value, and await our service standards, which is going to be launching general GA in June. And we have great folks like Karen and our customer success management team to help you guide you towards full service ownership. Again, thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to continuing the journey together.